Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers today. The three great individuals got together and decided to write a groundbreaking book, which is called The AI for Food Movement. And here's what the book looks like. I got my copy, and you should absolutely get it too. So, Michael Walton, Ravi, and Vinay, they're also the co founders of this movement called the AI for Food Movement. So, Ravi is a global sustainability leader and an AI for Food movement pioneer. With over 25 years of international experience, he champions innovative technology solutions for sustainable food systems. He has been recognized as a global sustainability champion by US congressmen. Ravi also mentors top executives and continues to inspire transformative change in the environmental stewardship. Our next guest, Michael, is a dynamic technology leader with a proven track record of innovation recognized by multiple industry awards, including the Microsoft Champions Club and two You Make It Happen Award from Dexmark. With deep expertise in cloud technologies, machine learning, and project management, he brings a global perspective to technological advancements. He's also the co-author of this book, The AI for Food Movement, and he represents the cutting edge of AI's potential to transform industries, combining technical prowess with strategic vision. And finally, Vinay is a pioneering leader in AI-powered food innovation, serving as the co-founder and CEO of BCDI iLabs InnovateNext, and also the AI for Food Global Food Initiative. His groundbreaking work in AI-driven design of experiments is revolutionizing food R&D, dramatically accelerating product development timelines, and unlocking new possibilities in flavors, textures, and nutrition. So, gentlemen, a very warm welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, Vinay, let's get started with you. So, you are one of the co-founders of this book. What inspired you to write this book?
I think the inspiration has been throughout my life, and it's culminated into I'd say the three phases of my career. Right. The first one was in technology. So 1/3 of my career was in technology. 1/3 was in manufacturing, and the other 1/3 was in food R&D and food manufacturing. And when I look out, one thing that stood out to me is how even within the food industry, knowledge about what is AI, what is the potential of AI, how far can we take it, what are people doing, seem to be very scattered, and people even in the industry really didn't know, what is crop sciences in AI, what is supply chain in AI, and different people, in R&D, they may not know anything, everything outside of their area. So there was a need for us to bring together a knowledge base that really brought out where we are today in AI and the food industry. And when we put this book together, Michael, Ravi, and I, we also decided to create this book as a time capsule. So when we look back 10 years from now and say, what opportunities, what options did people at that time have for AI in the food industry, and what did we do? This book then becomes a time capsule, and you can see what options we have, and then we will know where we lead. So that was really our inspiration to write this book.
Wonderful, Vinay. So, Vinay, as you naturally said, there's been a lot of there's a time capsule, and there's a lot of advancements that have happened, and of course will happen. But in terms of the historical part, looking back, what are some of the key advancements in AI in particular that you see, in particular for the food and beverages industry, that you see very applicable in this case?
When you look at food and bev, we think of food. We think about the farms and the crops that we grow and any animal husbandry we'll have and poultry and so on. So we think of the source, and when we think of the source, the first thing that really affects that is weather prediction, and that really is the start, and that's been going on for how long? Really a long time. So that ability for us to be able to predict weather, and from there be able to predict the yield of the crop and so on. So that really starts our journey of AI in the food ecosystem. And weather obviously will also look at supply chain and supply chain interruptions. So all of that, weather plays a very big role. Did you know that depending on the weather, a cloudy sky, a sunny sky, the milk production in cow absolutely varies. The protein content, the fat content, they're all different. So understanding that and what that does to our whole food supply chain is very important. And when you look at that, and then you look at what we've been able to do in supply chain, and COVID is a really great example. We really know that. And the amount of Industry 4.0 that we've been witnessing in manufacturing. So all of those things put together, there's a lot of work that we've done, and Ravi can really talk about the focus on sustainability, the scope 1, 2, and 3, and things that we're bringing in AI to do. But one thing that was really lacking, which is where all of us got together, and we're here at BCDI Labs, was the origination in food R&D, and the origination of this cycle in manufacturing, which is at food R&D. AI was very, very weak, and we decided to change that, and that's how BCDI Labs really got started into InnovateNext.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. So Ravi, let's move on to you. What were your motivations about starting the AI for food movement? And that's one part. And other than that, if you can also talk about, you guys recently had a summit about the AI for food movement. If you can share some of the key insights and learning from that summit.
I think really, thank you again, Arun, for having us. I think for us, it's been a personal and a professional quest. I think having spent about more than 20 years, spending time in more than 80 countries, looking at inequalities, especially looking at food insecurity, the question always remained that, why is some part of the world, which is in an extreme form of food waste, to a form parts of the world, even today in 2025, having food scarcity. And I think also really understanding, at very early on in my life, I started working on environmental projects, whether it was water, pollution, and so on and so forth. And one particular event which definitely changed my life growing up in Delhi was when we had an exchange of students between India and America. And there was no internet. We didn't know. The only interpretation for us was the Americans would be, great white people or great black people, or the American Indian community. There was a girl who drew an interesting poster, and it had an apple. And she then unveiled the flip, and it said, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, if I can only afford it. So I thought, okay, maybe this is what she means for us in India. And I asked her, I said, what does it mean? Like, why do you say that? She said, we have no food in parts of America because of inequality. So the question of inequality really stuck by, and that she belonged to a Native American community. And subsequently, as I moved a lot in the development sector, from Haiti to parts of Africa, to parts of Asia, and Eastern Europe, and Central Asia, we realized that food is a privilege for many parts of the world, with the irony that we have enough food to feed probably 4 times the amount of people that there are. So that was always a very big question. And then when Vinay, me, and Michael, we met over a meal, which was interesting, in a very nice South Indian restaurant here in New Jersey, we started speaking, and then we realized that, food sustainability, AI, manufacturing have such strong correlation. So for you to really have that journey from the farm to the plate, there are many ways you can make that journey more healthy, nutritious, safe, and sustainable. So it's easy to say that. So for us to unpack that was something that we looked into. And that's really the reason we created or co-created the AI for Food Global Initiative. And the idea was to really bring all the different actors in my world of sustainability, in manufacturing and in tech, policymakers. So this event that we organized, thanks to Edelman, we organized this in the Edelman in downtown Chicago. Very grateful to them. We brought together, it was only by invitation because we wanted to bring people who want to have a serious conversation. This was not a paid event. It was not a charge event. It was really people like you, Arun, and others who really think that the world needs to have a serious conversation on food and making, especially in our context now, which has been more pronounced, making America healthy again, right? That's the conversation which kind of we preempted this, Michael, and Vinay maybe 2 years ago. And this brought together industry leaders, R&D folks, manufacturing folks, policymakers. We had politicians, and we had practitioners as well as innovators to really look at what does AI for food mean in the R&D space, and we'll probably talk about that later. The only good thing here is that the movement grew, and we've been requested to organize AI for Food initiatives in different parts of the world, and we'll talk about that journey. And if many of you are around this area on May 7th, we are very happy to also share with you. Maybe we can go public. On May 7th, we're organizing the AI for Food a global summit at Cornell, at Food Science Department. So this is where the journey is moving. And the whole essence of the journey is, as I said, and underline that, which has been said in the book too, is making food healthy, nutritious, affordable. That's Vinay's favorite, and safe and sustainable for everybody across the planet. Thank you, Arun.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Ravi, so Michael, let's move on to you. So you are the co-author of this book now, right? What unique perspectives were you able to bring in?
Well, I grew up very poor in the United States, grew up on the flood wall and government housing. So food insecurity was very, very real for me growing up. And I didn't want to experience that anymore. And as I had my journey through technology, working with the most advanced companies on the planet, it had always been a high degree of personal interest for me to be able to address this problem. I tried it when I was at Google, and it was way too expensive. I tried it then at Microsoft, and it was applicable, and we had proven out some use cases with Microsoft, but what we found was it needed a technological advancement that wasn't yet existing. When I left Microsoft and joined forces with my other two here, we realized that technology was both affordable and available, and we had the blueprint. We knew what we needed to do, and we had the fire in our belly to go do it. And so that's what happened. And so I want to share with you some interesting points that become very real of what motivates me when I think about the book and I think about what we're doing in AI for food. The first question comes to me for everyone here, and that is, food inequity is not necessarily something for just the poor people. I'll give you a great example. Just yesterday, last night, a gigantic study was released out of Delhi, Ravi, over in India, that identified that over 2/3 of the wealthy to middle class in India that was studied are protein deficient, to a point where it was showing up in the cellular structure of the cellular walls in their body. Not that for a moment. They can afford food. But is food actually the good? Are we producing quality food that's nutritious and affordable? Okay. The second thing is that came to my mind is that here in the United States, I've done other studies. I've worked with others at University of Kentucky, et cetera. And in my own state, an ag state that produces so much ag, we have about 20% impoverished that don't even get fresh fruit on a daily basis. They don't have access. If you want to ever have a little fun, just drive some of the roads that aren't on the interstate, and within 20-25 minutes away from the interstate, unless there's a major supermarket, you're not going to see fresh fruit. You're going to see soda. You're going to see processed foods of a high degree that are not healthy. So that's what really motivated me. It really wasn't so much I wanted to become rich or wealthy. I wanted to change the world and make it a better place and prove it can be done. The last thing I wanted to share with you is it comes hand in hand. You got to be able to help companies make money doing it. Okay, so let's not forget that. So when we got together and created this book, we showed a roadmap for companies to be able to produce healthy, delicious, nutritious, affordable food in a way that takes less than a third of the effort and a third of the time. Think about that for a moment. Transforming the industry, just like what you're doing here in media. You go back 25, 35 years ago, it took an arm and a leg to get a commercial on TV or on the radio. Today, I can go to my big movie theater, and for $50, I can have a commercial run. So we're transforming the industry much like others, but in doing it in a very rapid way. It's way overdue. Thank you.
Yeah. No, Michael, you're spot on. We see a lot of junk food, all right, and a lot of misconceptions that people have about food, and you're spot on. In many cases, people can actually afford the food, the right food, but they just don't know what right to eat. So, talk to our viewers and double down on that a bit, Michael, in terms of what are the misconceptions that exist, in particular in the intersection of AI and food.
Can you say that again, please?
Yeah, talk to our viewers about some of the misconceptions that exist at that intersection of food and AI, in particular the AI
Oh,
for food movement.
absolutely. That it's way too expensive. That's completely not true. Completely not true. It's very hard to do. Well, I will say that there's some difficulty in amassing your data. And the big reason from a technology perspective is no different than at home. At home, I have one system that has our payment details, another system, an Excel, a spreadsheet that does my planning for retirement, and another. The food industry is no different in the commercial side. They all have their data siloed all over the daggone place. And I will tell you that this is something that's a big misconception too, is that it is the scientist who is truly got it here to produce the future food, that next food. All we're doing is using AI to amplify that scientist, to do it 50 times faster. And it's very affordable. I think also the second misconception is AI is going to replace people's jobs. And I will tell you, there are not enough food scientists, okay? There's not enough chemists. There's not enough manufacturing people. So I got news for you. I don't think we're replacing any jobs. We're just making the jobs that they do more efficient and making them happier and producing better for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it's more about the scale rather than anything else. How do we
Really
do
is.
more stuff that was not being done so far?
That's correct. I will tell you that from an ethics perspective, we as a company, and in writing the book, we mention it. We won't take a project on to replace people. So this is a very clear direction Vinay had at the very beginning. We will not do projects to just solely replace a workforce. That's not what we do, and we won't do it. Maybe there's another company that would try to do it, but we're not doing that.
Yep. Yep. So, Vinay, coming back to you, in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, how do you see BCDI iLabs InnovateNext integrate more of AI into food product development?
When we look at food product development, I would just call it, let's say, product innovation. Okay, so food product innovation. Typically, when you think about it and think about food product innovation, you think about a food scientist in a lab, kind of researching and putting things together and creating a new formulation, a new recipe, a new product, and there it is. But it's not as straightforward. That particular food scientist in working in that R&D lab is no different than all of us working in a kitchen and trying to develop new flavors, new food, and innovating it at home. It's a little bit more structured, more organized, but that's about it. That doesn't mean we're getting a packaged food in our supermarket. It takes a lot of effort to get to that. So when you think about food product innovation, what we have put together, what we are thinking, how do we think about it? We think about it as a continuous innovation loop that goes from R&D, which we call bench scale. We scale it up to pilot, so pilot plants, and then we scale it up again into production scale for product certification. And then from production, we take it to post-production and enforce that standard that was certified when it's in the production line, right? So for us, we call it continuous product innovation. And the InnovateNext, the product we have, the platform we have, helps food scientists formulate new foods, like Michael was saying, faster. And there's a process why it is faster. And it's called an AI-assisted design of experiments. So instead of manually designing it and iterating through that, AI will tell you based on what parameters you've given, what do you want, what product do you want. If you want a beverage, how sweet do you want it? How thick do you want it? What kind of texture do you want? Do you want it gritty? Do you want it smooth? All of those things, you give it to AI, and AI will tell you, here is a formulation. Go do it and tell me, and it'll give you a forecast. this is where I think I will land. You run the experiment, tell it the actual, no different than your prediction and forecast and actual. And then from there, we'll have a reinforced learning to AI saying, well, this is what you said, this is where we are. Give me a next set of experiments, and AI will learn and tell it. So that is on the R&D side. On pilot, we take that and say, well, in process engineering. So a recipe is a formula and a process, a method, right? So if I'm making some things at home, I bring the ingredients, I cook it. Either I cook it on a pan or I cook it in an oven. That's a process. So the same thing is applicable for food as well in a factory. So process engineers take a process that's R&D scale and scale it up in the pilot plant and figure out whether that ingredient, that formulation is working, or it's sticking too much, it's too thick, and so on. And we'll come back and forth on R&D and pilot. So that continuous loop today is broken, which is very manual. It's on the phone between the two people, R&D and process engineering. Or it's an email, or it's an Excel sheet. And there is no learning also based on that, right? Very disconnected. And you take the same thing and take it to production line, the same thing happens. Certification doesn't happen in one run. It takes tens of runs, maybe hundreds of runs, and then they get it. But where is that knowledge that's being shared? Again, the same thing: Excel, email, calls, personal visits. This platform, this is where we kind of bring in structure to say, okay, the whole continuous product development happens from R&D to pilot to production on one platform. It's captured, and that data is now being shared with AI, and AI can tell you the next time you develop a new product, maybe similar, maybe different, or here are the problems you'll run into, could be in pilot, in production. So let's change the process. You want to do it, cook it for 15 minutes? I think 12 should be okay. Or no, you should do it for 20 minutes. That's the power of AI. So our job, the reason food product development is expensive is because it takes time, and the resources are expensive. Food scientists, are expensive resources. Process engineers are expensive resources. So all we're doing is we're going to reduce the time with AI and the platform to be able to do that. Time saves money. So that's our approach. And I believe showing the food industry a different way of doing product development, saving time, saving capacity, and being able to iterate faster for us as consumers, that we're asking our product, our brands, to give us more nutritious food, sustainable food. They want to do it, but they can't afford it. They don't have the resources, don't have the time. This will unlock that to the whole new level.
Wonderful. And Vinay, so what are your customers and the users of this platform? The data scientists, the food scientists, and others who are using it. What are they telling you? What kind of feedback are you getting from them?
Well, I'll give you one feedback from a customer. That customer had a problem taking a high protein dairy beverage from in 100 ml serving. They wanted to go over 10 grams of protein in that 100 ml serving. Okay. After 2 years, the closest they came, still not very stable, was 9 grams of protein. 2 years. Okay. We took all of that learning, put it into the platform, and it took us 3 months working with that company. We were able to go from 9 to 13 and a stable, much higher than 10, right? But it took us 3 months. It took us 3 months because they had a lot of failures, which is great. AI thrives on that, good, bad, everything. And after a year, I was talking to the CEO, and she said, well, we had a new customer, a startup, who came to us, and they wanted a high protein dairy beverage with some changes and some things that they wanted, some flavors and such. We asked the platform, we gave all the parameters to the platform, we asked it, and it gave us a recipe. The very first recipe was shelf stable. Think about it.
Wow.
Okay, a problem that they took 2 years to solve just a year ago in one first experiment. Now, I'm not saying everything is going to be first. Okay, in the first 5, first 10, still huge, mega improvement. That's the power of AI. So what are they doing now? They're saying, hey, listen, We used to be able to cater to 5 customers a month, 7 customers a month. We can cater to 50. Okay, so they've made capacity available to even more startups to experiment even more. So the landscape of food, the innovation in food is going to absolutely change with the use of AI in these platforms.
Yeah, that is a great example, and I just want to emphasize for all the viewers, especially those who are interested in foods, either be a food scientist or somebody working in the industry, is that here's a platform that actually helps you collaborate more and achieve scale in a very short, limited amount of time. So that's a great example, and thank you for sharing that with our viewers.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. So Ravi, so let's talking about the future a little bit. Talk to our viewers about some of the new trends that you see at that intersection of food security and AI.
It's really a great question, Arun, and I think consumer insights are really critical. And if you look at, we were just discussing about our own children, right? And we know that Gen Z, Gen Alpha are very clear that we have food industry now grappling with the issue because Gen Z decided not to have too much sugar, sugary drinks, for example, or too much processed food. And I think there's also a very strong political sentiment here, for example, in America, with the Make in America movement and Make America Healthy Again, very clearly saying that, we want to have nutritious food. We do work with many companies which look at consumer insights, for example, AI Palette, based out of Singapore, another great initiative that has been done there. I think what is becoming increasingly clear, as Vinay said earlier on, that more and more people are realizing, look, the climate is changing, and food industry, along with the agri industry, contributes to about 30 to 35% to the greenhouse gas emissions. So there are multiple factors here, right? So I think in terms of food security, I think the food waste is a very interesting thing, right? Because on one hand, we're saying we need to feed 8 billion people, and soon will be 9 billion, then 10 billion. But we know that about 1/4 or somewhere even more parts of the world, the food is wasted from that grain in that which is on that farm, and by the time that grain is processed and put onto our plates, right? For example, Canada and Saudi Arabia are great examples that 40% of food that comes on your plate is wasted. So, there's a dichotomy in many ways to really understand. So we really talk about that in creating awareness and also saying that, AI, can be a very critical solution in agri-tech, for example. But we, of course, are looking right now at the processing phase, as Vinay pointed out, in the R&D, in manufacturing, and hopefully we do cover that in logistics and distribution in the book. I think that's where we will see the trends moving. The more the companies, and if you look at the big hubs, where are the food processing, food manufacturing hubs of the world? They are in America, they're in China, they are in India, they're in Brazil, they're in Indonesia, right? So Turkey is another interesting market, Ireland, Canada. I think the consumer are very clearly demanding that the food needs to be sustainable. The food waste has to be reduced. The food has to be produced without wasting energy. In fact, optimization of water use, optimization of land use, optimization of, as I said, the power that is coming through right on the land to the factory floor. So that is one clear thing that is coming through on the areas. And I think if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, right, and we look at the goal number 3 on goal number 2 on food security, I think we are very clearly as BCDI, iLabs, InnovateNext, contributing and helping the partners and our customers contribute to achieving a goal that has been very much in the making for the last 25 years. The reason I say 25 years, because the Millennial Development Goals also talked about ending poverty, achieving food for all, for example, and we continue. And we've seen through climate change and through COVID crisis, these things have only become more challenging and difficult. So the one single thing that is going to be a game changer is a very clear resolve by politicians and industries saying that we will work together to achieve reduction in food insecurity, and also ensuring that the food that we are bringing to our citizens, and I think that has been said more recently here, is healthy and affordable to everybody. I think there's a very strong point on that overly processed food that we also talk about. We think, okay, yes, you manufacture, but here is how AI can help you make that food more healthy and nutritious.
Right. And Ravi, what role do you see the role of policy making? Because a lot of that is technology advancements, right? AI coming in and all the good stuff
Absolutely.
that Vinay described. But how do you see the role of policy evolving in shaping all of these?
Policy could be one single most fundamental anchor, where governments can take a decision. And like we are seeing this now with the new administration here, saying that, enough is enough. And say very seriously telling the food industry, which the politicians are saying that we don't want to take away your profit. We actually want you to make more money. But we also want to make sure that the food you're bringing to us or your food you're exporting is going to be healthy. So there are very few governments out there who are having a serious conversation on food nutrition, food manufacturing, and looking at AI as a critical opportunity to expedite and also recognize the urgency of food sustainability. I'll give you two examples, right? One is Australia. Australia managed to have convened probably one of the few governments a very clearly policy dialogue and AI for food about, I think, 1.5 years ago, and saying that what could be the possible implication for us, especially in the dairy industry. So I think that's one. Second, I think India started to, and we've been in conversation with various actors, and that's why for the AI for Food Global Summit, we had representation from Government of India, Government of Canada, and Government of Israel. And we also launched here in New York the book, and the Honorable Consul General of India was very much there. And we're hoping, Arun, maybe through your podcast, we'll be able to bring this book to the newly appointed, Agriculture Secretary, which was, RFK. And the whole area for us has been, we've been very strong. Has to be, and then you have to also understand the policy, just not the food industry. It is also to understand the pharma industry, right? So there are so many interlinkages, and we are saying that, if you're giving that food, if you look at the resolve 2 days ago, right, that we want to bring healthy food to schools, canteens. We don't want to give overly processed food. Who's going to debate that? But how will you do it with the urgency in mind? And that's where AI for food and companies like us, BCDI, iLabs, InnovateNext come in, because we are helping the industry do better, as Michael said, not taking away jobs. We're actually saying that become more efficient, more sustainable, and make this even healthier for everybody. A great question.
Yeah.
And so in our global summit, we had a panel discussion on exactly this topic and really saying that the call for all these governments to come together. And the hope is that we work in partnership with academia. And that's why we are a little different, right? We are not just a startup. We also want to have partnership with academia, because it's the role of academia, policymakers, and industry coming together along with the consumers to say that we need strong policies and programs and grants on innovating food that is more healthy through use of AI.
Yeah, no, great answer, Ravi. Michael, let's talk about consumer preferences. Right, consumer preferences have been evolving, as we have always seen, right, and they continue to do. So, how do you see the role of consumer preferences in this AI-driven food innovation?
Great question, Arun, because at the end of the day, I think the consumers getting educated every day. So this is not a thing of the past. That's the variable that I would say is widely changing. The education that is occurring, whether it be in social media, on podcasts, in the classroom, higher ed, lower ed, etc., they're hearing about how you should, healthy foods that you should be eating. Okay, they're hearing the problems about inequity. They're hearing about the inefficiencies in the system. My daughter, I'll never forget when she came to me one day and said, "Dad," this is in middle school, "did you know we produce more food than people can eat on the planet? And yet we have so many people starving. How's that possible?" And for at such a young age to come to this understanding. Now, the next thing is that in that education is their desire and demand. You see, they know that the technology has advanced and they want it now. They don't want to wait. They want it now. And so it used to be, I'll wait my 1 year for the next year that the best bananas come in. Then it was, well, I can get bananas from a commercial perspective here and there. Now it's, I want my banana smoothie on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I want it the same flavor, the same taste, And I know the technology exists to do it. It's no different than your cell phone, your laptop, the next best and greatest. Everyone knows, all the way down to the junior high school students, that their demand cycle is the time it's taking is closing and closing and closing. Used to be a year, then it was a half year, it was a quarter, it's a month. I want it now. And I don't think that it's a selfish thing. I think it's a human nature thing. So long story short is those consumer preferences are changing, and they're changing rapidly. You have to have AI, period. I'm just telling you straight up. You have to have these kinds of tools from a technological perspective to be able to produce, not just produce at a high degree of quality and yield, but back it all the way up to the R&D to capture these cycles. Let me explain. PepsiCo is down in the United States and the savory division in the most recent report adjustment on their Q4 earnings from 2024 by 3 to 4%, depending on which region of the United States you look. Who would have ever thought of that? One of the cola kings and snack kings of the world. And how are they going to capture that momentum to catch up that 3 or 4%? Well, it's because the consumer wants a healthier option. They're buying healthier products. Well, either you can go back to the traditional ways that people do it today and take 18 months to 4 years to figure out that healthy, nutritious bar that you're going to bring out, or whatever snack it is, and soda. Or you could use AI in a platform like ours. I would say ours is the best, but I get it. It's ours. And if you read the book, you'll see the path to do it. And I could do it rapidly, quickly, capture that momentum, satisfy the consumer's need. Furthermore, I could participate in the education cycle and see the demands way out in advance. Or I could just put my head in the sand like most do and say, well, it was a bad quarter. We'll make it up later. So that's it.
Yeah, no, Michael, you're spot on. Michael, so follow-up question on that. So consumer preferences, rightly said, they are changing, they're evolving. But at the same time, people also want food at a lower cost, right? And at the same time, manufacturers and researchers, they want it to be available to consumers at a rapidly pace, right? So how do you see AI bridging the gap between the scale, the speed at which consumers want, and the speed at which manufacturers want to reduce the supply chain and take products faster to the consumers?
So I want to add one more piece to that statement. The farmers, okay, the producers of the raw material, they're struggling to stay alive if they're not on a gigantic commercial platform. So we've got laborers that are producing our food who have a great big stake in this, who they themselves are not profiting enough, but the price is up here, right? So the price is too high. My supplier of raw materials is struggling to be able to, make ends meet for themselves. I mean, most cases. So AI across the board is going to help the farmer, the producer, to be able to produce a higher yield at a higher quality. We see this. This is actually where I think AI actually started with the food supply chain, was all the way back there. And we're seeing those innovations to being in the recipe itself, knowing that AI can aid in not using as much water, not as much energy, not as much cost, not as much labor, higher degree of efficiency and yield. This is important. Vinay and I, this is something that we talk. Every producer I've ever been to leaves yield in the four walls of that factory all the time. But because they're not being pushed to get the higher yield, they don't. Okay. So AI can capture that and be able to create it. And then we won't be leaving so much waste out there. And I believe at the front end of it, the farmer, the supplier, the grower are going to be able to make a good living, and we'll be able to get affordable supply chains of food. That's what I believe. But you've got it. That ecosystem, that supply chain is so tenuous and difficult. The only place that it kind of gets more efficient, if you will, is the commercial major big producers that have these gigantic commercial industrialized farms. But then you're into the other problem, and that is the sustainability of it, the impacts to the environment, the impact to the community. It is a hard problem to solve, and I think AI is a cornerstone to being able to create those efficiencies to be able to do what we want to do.
Yeah, you're right, Michael. I mean, if it was an easy problem to solve, humans would have solved it. But then there's so many difficulties involved and so many, stakeholders with conflicting opinions and views on this that it actually requires far more superior than human brain to look at the problem and solve it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to the next segment of our show, which is called the rapid fire round. Okay. So, Vinay, maybe I'll start with you then.
Sure.
So my first question to you is, what's your favorite AI application in everyday life?
Oh, the maps. It's my all-time favorite. I've had many experiences before we started using it, and it's really going, to the next level. It'll tell me when I sit in the car where I'm going. How's that? So I think it's come a long way. To me, it's my most favorite app.
Okay, Michael, what about you?
Well, I have two because I didn't think of it, but Maps is probably the one I use all the time. But it's Google Maps I prefer. When I was there, I had a good involvement in part around it anyway. But the one that I use in every day right now is Microsoft Copilot. I use it all the time to even make my job more efficient as president every day.
Yeah. And Ravi, what about you?
I do a lot of research, so I spend a lot of time on Perplexity. That's something which I really find very fascinating, and especially the way Arav has put that together, because I also don't like to just Google things without having sources, and then I not only just go blindly using it, you have to go and verify it. So I do that a lot in my work, and I do a lot of creative stuff. So I'll end up using Copilot. I find it very fascinating the way it's been coming up, and I think it'll definitely be a very critical tool for us. So those are two things that I'm literally obsessed with.
Yeah, Perplexity, I should add that I use it extensively too, and a wonderful tool. And that's one of my favorites.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. My next question.
Add one, I'll add
Go ahead.
Perplexity as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
I will add Perplexity.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool. I love using it. All right. So, Michael, the second one to you. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. All right. Vinay, how about you?
To me, I've been asked this question in the past. That I would say to me it is Adi Shankaracharya, and his philosophy of Advaita. I really want to understand, because there were so many conflicting philosophies, not very different in where we are, and we look at food and everybody has so many different things, but he really brought everybody together. A whole country or a whole religion together to see things in a different way, in one way, and be able to do that. Takes tremendous amount of understanding of all these different variations, and then be able to convince people that there is a different path. I think the ability how to do that and what prompted him and how did he get it, and of course more than that, those are things that I would like to really understand and learn.
Awesome. And Ravi, coming to you. How about you?
I would rather be with Paramahansa Yogananda, because autobiography of a yogi is something which was given to me when I lost my father. And, I think many of us will get clouded in this, material world, but ultimately it's the spiritual upliftment that really drives us. So for me, if I could spend even 1 hour just understanding the meaning of life and the journey of the soul, that will be absolutely rewarding.
Beautiful answers, all of you. Beautiful answers. Right. So the next one, what is one book that has influenced your career? And maybe Ravi, here we start with you.
I think Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, that really talks about how we are as civilizations. I don't know if you guys have read it, but I think that was one book that when I was starting off was very critical. But on my own professional skill journey is how to make friends and influence people. I think the psychology of how people behave, whether you're even social media to social interactions, even stands today. And the third book will be 7 Habits. I know it's outdated. Many people don't realize where Stephen Covey was, but I think some of those gems that he talks about, and more recently, is Atomic Habits. That's my latest one that I really like. I think those are some very nice books. And of course, I talked about autobiography for yogi. Sorry, I've given you a list of 5. It's very difficult, but that'll be my sequence.
Okay. Now, Michael, how about you?
Well, my greatest passion in the world is being a dad and a husband. So it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It really, coming up very, very poor, it made me think about how I wanted to set my family up for the future to be, debt free and live a very good life. That's on the more materialistic side. And then, of course, on the more spiritual side, I have a few others. But yeah, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is one that I actually keep it near my desk frequently, just to remind me, hey, look, this is why I'm doing it, right? So,
yeah, wonderful, Michael. And Vinay?
To me, I have 2 books. One is called Nurture Shock by Poe Bronson, and that book was about thinking differently about raising children. So when my first daughter was born, that's when I read that book by chance. But I have used that book in a lot of relationships, because a lot of relationships are starting small, starting very beginning like a child. You got to nurture it. And I've taken a lot of that learning about raising a kid and applying it to relationships. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, and you learn from there. But to me, that was a very profound book. And the second book I would say that really changed my perception about the globe, about people, is Samuel Huntington's Clash of the Civilizations and the Remaking of the World Order. To me, that was, I was, I think, in college then, it opened up my curiosity to understand more about the world, the culture, the differences, the similarities, and about human nature itself, and ask questions that I didn't think, I could ask. So to me, those are 2 books.
Awesome.
Can I just say on the thing?
Yes, please.
Sorry. If we have to give a book, I think 3 of us will do AI for food. Go get it. So that's our baby. We'll give to that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So the 4th one, Michael, we'll start with you. So describe your ideal work environment in 1 word.
creative.
Excellent. Vinay?
Trust.
Okay. And Ravi?
Accountable.
Awesome. Awesome. I guess all 3 of them are important in their own ways. So the last one that we have for you, what is one piece of advice you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs? Ravi?
We say that in the book that, very seldom in civilization you get an opportunity to innovate that can change humanity. And I think we are in the 5th industrial revolution. I think I said that on my LinkedIn post. AI-driven 5th industrial revolution. I think we can undo a lot of practices that did not really were sustainable. But I think this is one thing. I think whatever you do, this is the time to innovate. When you innovate, please make sure that you're also thinking of innovation soaked in commitment and solutions to sustainability. There's only one planet. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. And Vinay?
For entrepreneurs, piece of advice. I would say that nurture your vision, because you became an entrepreneur because you have a vision. There'll be a lot of people, a lot of situations that will come and test your resolve about that vision, and that test will solidify it and change it and move it, but nurture it. Don't let your vision not be yours. Okay, so nurture that vision, and at the same time ensure that you have money to sustain that vision. Right, that cash flow is equally important for having that vision to take it forward. So balance it out, but don't lose sight of why you're doing what you do.
Great. And Michael?
I didn't know this, Arun, but because I work with them so much, all the speed round has really aligned to my partner's personalities, even to what Vinay just said. Remember, mine was creative, right?
Yeah.
In my one word for work. But I got to tell you, it's And this one is one that's actually facing us right now that we're going to be meeting on a lot next week. And it's true that opportunity rarely knocks when you are ready. That's all I need. That's all I can say is that, you know, you can have a vision and you can, but you got to have the courage to jump in and see it through. And it is not always nice. It is not always fun. It is not always, but a lot of times it is fun. And a lot of times it is rewarding, but it is not that opportunity to seize that moment. You better realize that it's coming typically when you're not ready. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, great. Yeah, those are wonderful pieces of advice for anybody, all the aspiring entrepreneurs, or even the ones who are on the journey to learn from. So that brings us to the end of the show. So Ravi, Vinay, Michael, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an insightful session personally for me.
I hope to see you again another time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Arun, thank you again for having us here, and thank you for giving us this platform to share our thoughts and showcase the work that we've done at the AI for Food Movement book. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. And for all our viewers, here's a book that you should absolutely read. It's called The AI for Food Movement, and we have the 3 list authors right here on our show. So thank you, dear authors, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.